The big stories of the day, starting with this Bloomberg exclusive. Malvinder and Shivinder Singh, the two Singh brothers, are said to have withdrawn more than 500 crore rupees from their group company, Fortis Healthcare, without the approval of the company's board. Bloomberg News' Ari Elstera, who broke that story, joins in now from Delhi with the details on this. Ari, first explain to our viewers what you're telling them in the story, and then I'll come to you with a couple of follow-up questions.
Sure. I mean, basically our reporting shows is that the promoters of Fortis, Malvinder and Shivinder Singh, routed money out of the company through entities that eventually ended up with them, about 5 billion rupees. This caused the auditor, Deloitte, to refuse to sign off on the second quarter results, which delayed those second quarter results. And while the promoters, the two brothers, tried to figure out a way to get this money back in so that they could move ahead with the results, they've since announced that Fortis will report its second and now its third quarter results on Tuesday. And just last night, after we contacted the Singhs to say we were going to publish this story about the withdrawn funds, the Singh brothers actually resigned their positions on Fortis's board just ahead of our story coming out.
All right. Even as you speak, Ari, we've got a comment or a series of responses coming in from Fortis. I'm going to summarize them very quickly. In effect, they are denying some parts of the story. They've said that, I think the total loan value is at about 473 crores, if I understand that correctly. The deployment of these funds was in the normal course of operations. They've denied that the auditors refused to sign the second quarter accounts. They said that the board will consider both the second quarter and third quarter results on February 13, and that the unit deployed funds in short-term investments. That's where the money was put to. So in some senses, Ari, they're obviously not in agreement with the suggestion in your story that this money was taken out of the company and diverted towards promoter group entities, as they are more frequently referred to in India. I want you to stay on with us because we have two experts joining us to talk us through how they're reacting to this story. That's Amit Tandon of IIAS and Jayan Gupta, former executive director of SEBI and now founder of SES. And both IIAS and SES are proxy advisory firms and also look into issues of governance in India's listed companies. Amit, I'll start off with you first. Fortis has denied this and said that the funds were put to regular use. That may be something that's in dispute. But it is curious that their second quarter numbers were not approved. And while they claim that the auditor has not refused to do so, it's even more curious that second and third quarter are being taken up together.
Good afternoon, Manik. You're absolutely right. I think the promoters have found themselves in a pickle, not for the first time. It seems to be happening with remarkable regularity as far as they are concerned. Their answers, which they provided at this stage, seems to beg more questions rather than answer some of the concerns which the market players have had. The first, that it's highly unusual for companies to kind of look at two-quarter results at the same time. The second, when they turn around and say that, look, all the money was there in secured investments, I don't think that is an area of concern. The concern which was highlighted by your story is the fact that, look, this money is actually showing in the company's books, but it's really not in the company's books, but has been moved out of from the company into certain promoter-controlled entities.
Yeah, fair enough.
And the third is, of course, that, look, if they believe everything is right and kosher, then why resign at this stage? I find the fact that, at this moment to cite something which had happened with regard to the Daiichi Ranbaxy transaction and saying the court orders have gone against us and we are resigning doesn't kind of fit into the timeline which you have described.
Ari, did the company offer you any explanation as to why their second quarter earnings were not, sort of finalized, and why they've bunched the earnings of two quarters at one time?
They actually didn't address that point at all. We did put it to them, but they didn't address it. They didn't. A lot of the denials that they've put out in the statement, when we approached them, they didn't come with that to us. What they did do is they offered this explanation, highlighted by the previous speaker, as to, how the money went around and where the money really was. And we've included that in our story, but frankly, we stand by our reporting that money made its way to the promoters, and at the time that it was diverted out, it did not have approval of the board.
All right. And were you able to ascertain what that money was put to use for?
No, it wasn't clear from our reporting exactly what it was used for. I mean, obviously the financial situation of the Singh brothers is well known. They have a very large debt load at the holding company level. They've stated to credit rating agencies that they are working to pay it back through divestments and other maneuvers. They've had one default at that level. So, I mean, that's sort of the backdrop to this story, to this latest development. But in terms of what the specific funds that we found were taken out of Fortis, what they were used for by the promoters, it's not clear at this stage.
All right, Jayan Gupta, what do you make of the details in not just the Bloomberg story, but the very fact, like I put to Amit, that they are looking at earnings of 2 quarters together, even though they're denying that the delay was not on account. The delay for the previous quarter, that's second quarter, was not on account of the auditor having refused to sign the earnings, as suggested in the Bloomberg story. They haven't explained, though, why they're running a delay.
Minta, first of all, I would say that there is some sort of a regulatory lacuna, because the companies can go to ROC and say that they are not going to, or go to stock exchange, that they are unable to publish quarterly results. My issue there is that they should exactly say that what is the reason why they want to delay. If that is the case, then probably there will be more transparency. Now, coming back to the entire episode, now we have got two sides of the story. One says that auditor refused, the money went out of the company, and the other, the promoters are saying that no, money did not go, the results are not delayed because of this reason, blah, blah, all these things. Now, we as an investor, we as an analyst, really do not know what is the truth. But looking into the history, if you see in past what is happening in Religare, what is happening in Fortis, the story seems to be credible, and explanation from the management or the owners doesn't appear to be credible. But we cannot say for sure what is happening. The other issue is this, that if you see, yesterday they resigned, and they say probably because of the rent-back thing, and banks are not extending loan to Fortis also, we do not want Fortis to suffer. I don't buy that theory. The issue is very clear that somewhere something is rotting in the entire Fortis and Religare empire. And if you see, they have been doing transfer from one company to another company, investment from one company to another company. It is a mess. And if you see entire performance of the entire Religare group and the market capitalization that has come down, the story is very clear that something is not right there.
Okay. Ari, do you have a question for either of our guests before I jump in with the next one?
Sure. One for Mr. Gupta. What would you say is the next step for regulators at this point? Now that our story is on the wire, I understand that the Ministry of Corporate Affairs would regulate these areas of corporate governance, and I'm wondering, what are they going to do?
There could be multiple action, but the first and foremost will start from the stock exchange, seeking clarity from the company, what is there. Then, if required, there will be investigation from SEBI, Stock Exchange, MCA, CSR office. But my point in all these cases is that in India, we have a system where any investigation and taking it to the logical conclusion is at least a process which will take a decade. And in this time, every money that has been siphoned off will be gone and investors will be still not getting anything. So the issue here is this, that somewhere we have to ensure that if there is a fraud like this or if there is any siphoning of money, the first and foremost should be catch hold of that money and ensure that it is not distributed here and there further. That is the biggest problem. But the four agencies can simultaneously go against, that is Stock Exchange, SEBI, MCA and SFIO. But who will do this and how fast they will move, it is a question which none of us have answers.
Even as we discuss this story, minutes after Bloomberg reported it, you can take a look at how the Fortis healthcare stock is doing. It's up almost 17%, which is not typically how shares or stocks or shareholders react to stories which suggest that money was moved out of the company towards promoter, entities. I think, Amit, do you think that the market is reading not what is reported by Bloomberg today, but the fact that the two brothers stepped down from the board yesterday as a precursor towards the finalization of that very big deal that they've been hoping to pull off for several months now, which keeps making the headlines every now and then with the newspapers, but hasn't fructified as yet?
Look, just given the past pattern of behavior which we've seen, the issues with Ranbaxy, some issues which India Horizon Fund and IDBI trustee have raised with regard to Religare, while the market at this moment is reacting to the fact that the Malvinder and Shivinder are no longer associated with the company, it just might be a little bit too premature. And the reason I mention this is the fact that, look, after Ranbaxy got sold, Daiichi realized that they'd been sold a herring, and they actually then went into arbitration before they finally won in both with an award with the arbitrator and in the High Court here. The second thing you need to and therefore, you have a similar charge which has been made in Religare enterprises. So I'm not sure whether, if the business gets sold, what you are able to do is you're able to alienate the brothers, but whether how much of the cash from the business is actually going to go out to shareholders, how much of it is going to remain here, and therefore is going to be kept for contingencies, etc., we don't know. So all I'm saying at this stage is the fact that the brothers may no longer be associated and this could be seen as a signal is a good thing. But I think this, the investors will continue to hear a little bit more about what has happened with the cash flows, some of the issues with regard to where the funds have gone, and the fact that there may be a hole which is a little bit larger than what is appearing at this stage.
Yeah, fair enough. Ari, one final question for you. Fortis has been on the block for a while now. Did you find out anything in your investigation into the story and in speaking with the people involved, whether they're anywhere close to a deal? Because when I saw the news last evening of the two brothers stepping down, I just thought that this was the final precursor before they're able to close that deal.
Right. Well, here at Bloomberg, we put out all the news that's fit to print. So anything else, if anything else I know, I guarantee you'll know as soon as we can firm it up enough to put it out in the world. As to the sale, I mean, that's obviously something that's been speculated about for a long time. Bloomberg, we have reported in the past that they are in talks. In fact, I interviewed Fortis's president some time ago, and he said that they were in talks. As for the state of those negotiations, currently, after the Daiichi verdict and after our story today, I can't speak to them. But I mean, we would like to find out. I'm sure everyone else would too.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Ari, for joining us and taking us through that story, and to Amit and Mr. Gupta as well. I think it's worth pointing out to our viewers that, with these, these infirmities in the actions that have taken place at Fortis, you also have to remember that Religare has been through some similar tumult where both the chairman and the director resigned as the company was facing RBI scrutiny, and we've seen big management turnover there as well. So this does not bode well for either of the Singh brothers. But on that note, I'm going to leave it there. You can find out a lot more about both the Fortis story and the Religare stories on BloombergQueen.com.